Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Southern Gal True Crime. Or if this is your first time here, thank you for choosing to watch this video out of all the millions of videos that are out there. And today I have a very special case that I wanted to bring to you. A family member actually reached out to me on Facebook a couple of days ago to see if there was anything I could do to bring more awareness to her brother's unsolved homicide case. And I said, absolutely. I never turned down any requests to cover any case, and most especially when it is a family member who reaches out to me to do a video or a live stream or whatever the case may be to help bring more awareness to their loved one's case. So today we're going to be talking about the case of Larry McNelly. And Larry's sister, Debbie, is the one who reached out to me through Facebook to see if I would do a video or, do something to help bring more awareness to his case. And I'm doing it. It will be uploaded today, September 10th, which is the 6-year mark since Larry went missing and ultimately, unfortunately, was found deceased. So that's why I wanted to get this done and have it uploaded today for the 6th year. I don't want to call it an anniversary because it is definitely not something to celebrate, but just the 6 years since this crime happened. So this story starts with a fire, then a missing person, and then ultimately a body found 2 states away. So now, as of today, September 10th, 2025, exactly 6 years later, questions still remain. Who took the life of Larry McNelly? So this is a question that has haunted people in Alexander County, and this is from Illinois, since it happened in 2019. So Larry's sister, Miss Debbie, says, I cannot imagine the people who were involved in this having any peace whatsoever, having done something like this to my brother. I just cannot imagine. You just, even through the messages that we exchanged through Facebook, I could just sense, obviously the sadness and the trauma, and just wanting to know, Miss Debbie just wanting to know what happened to her brother. So once again, 6 years later, there have been no arrests in the case. There have only been theories and rumors about what may have led up to Mr. McNelly's homicide. All that is known for certain is that 59-year-old Alexander County Highway Department worker Larry McNelly left work on Tuesday, September 10th, 2019, and that was the last time anyone other than the offender or offenders saw him alive. So Bruce Ford of TAMMS, which is the town that he disappeared from, says, the way it looks to me, I just miss them, talking about whoever set the fire at the house. He said they had a real good fire going and they just left. So Mr. Ford was a homebound neighbor. He is the one that spotted the first signs of something amiss around 8:30 p.m. on the night of September 10th, 2019. Oh no, this is another neighbor. She spotted the flicker of flames in the distance, but she could not tell if it was an emergency or not. So she called Mr. Ford to go check it out. And Ford said she thought that maybe Mr. McNelly was burning off his field, is what she first thought. But when Mr. Ford got there, he says, when I got there, I saw that was not the case. So Mr. Ford wanted to call 911 immediately, but even emergency cell services on Mr. McNally's stretch of McDaniel School Road was non-existent, unfortunately. So he said that he ran to use the neighbor's landline, alerting authorities at around 8:45 p.m. And on the recording of the 911 call, he can be heard telling the Union County dispatcher, so Union County dispatches for Alexander County, about the fire in the exchange below. So Mr. Ford says, hello, or the dispatcher says, hello, 911. Or no, Mr. Ford says, hello, 911. Yes, there's a fire out here on McDaniel School Road at Larry McNelly's house. And the dispatcher asks, is it the house or just somewhere on his property? Mr. Ford says, the house. It looks like the house is on fire. It looks like a big fire. The dispatcher says, do you know, is anyone in the house? And Mr. Ford says, I haven't got a clue. I have not went up there. I know I can hear explosions going off. So it's unknown what these explosions were. It could possibly be some kind of gas, propane canisters that might have been in the house. It could have been, if Mr. McNelly had any ammo or anything in the house, it could have been ammo going off. So Mr. Ford did take a picture on his phone, his camera phone, or his phone's camera, that shows the home engulfed in a wall of flames. And I do have, give me 1 second, I do have that picture. So this is the picture that Mr. Ford took. It shows the Mr. McNelly's home engulfed in a wall of flames. And the photographs metadata timestamps the picture at 8:51 p.m. on September 10th, 2019. And Mr. Ford said it was just blazing really big, and you can see in that picture, it's just the whole house is just engulfed in flames. So TAMMS volunteer firefighter CJ Webb did not live far from Mr. McNelly's residence. So when he heard that his department had a call, he rushed out right away to go to the house. He says, I came out here in my personal vehicle, which I really wasn't supposed to do, but I was close. The whole entire house was engulfed on the south end, and it was moving north, and it was coming out of the windows. So Webb was the first firefighter on the scene, and he said that he noticed something early on that he said made him think that this wasn't just your run-of-the-mill fire call. He came across something that he calls very strange as he was readying the house for the fire crews that would eventually show up. He said, we make sure the power is disconnected. We have to do that before we put any water on it. When I got there, I opened the box. I went to turn the power off, and they were already in the off position. So when you go to the breaker box, is what he's talking about, the breaker box to turn, flip the breakers to turn all the electricity off, but somebody had already turned the electricity off to the house. And he says to turn them on, you flip the breakers up, and to turn it off, you flip them down. And he said that they were all flipped down. So Webb said that he had only seen the power already off in abandoned homes or rental properties that were vacant at the time. But Webb knew that Mr. McNelly was living in the house, so he could not see any reason why the power would have been shut off to the house. While he said that oddity piqued his interest, he did not have time to think about it much at the moment. As the fire blazed behind him, he had work to do. So he put his suspicions aside to search for Mr. McNelly. He says, I was just looking around for Larry. I knew he had a big dog, and I did not see the dog anywhere, and I could not find Larry. So meanwhile, Mr. Ford, the one who had called, made the 911 call, said the fire burned so fiercely that just 8 minutes from the time he snapped his first photo showing a blazing inferno to his second photo at 8:59, the house was all but gone, all but leveled. It had been burned completely to the ground. And I do have a picture that was taken when daylight came in the morning time. So that is the house, completely, just, you can see it there, just completely gone, completely burned. So dispatch 911 records show that the first fire truck arrived on the scene at around 9:05 p.m. And upon arrival, the Horseshoe Lake firefighter driving the rig reported to dispatch that 90% of the structure was already on the ground. So at 8, see, when was the first call? believe it was around 8:51. The call came in, and at 9 o'clock, around 10 minutes later, it was just completely burned to the ground. 90% of the structure was already burned to the ground. So it was a very, very intense fire. Webb says it was very advanced. I was not looking at there being anything or anybody in the house alive at that time. Still, Webb and others did hold out hope that Mr. McNelly could still be found. They hoped that he had not even been home when the fire started. Dispatchers began calling any phone number they could get their hands on to potentially reach Mr. McNelly, but none of the calls turned up any sign of his whereabouts. Webb says, I was hoping for the best. The dog was gone. I thought maybe he was back in the woods with the dog. Then, when my stomach sank, I was standing there behind the house, watching what was going on, and something licked my hand. And it was the dog. It was just Mr. McNelly's dog. He says, I guess it had come down from the woods after it was scared away, and that's when I knew something was wrong. So Mr. McNelly's sister, Miss Debbie, learned of the fire around 10:30 that night. She says that Mr. McNelly's daughter called her to tell her about the fire. Miss Debbie says she didn't think his truck, was home, so we didn't think that he was home. I went to stay with my mom because I knew she would be upset waiting for word from Dad. I finally took her down the road to a bar that he used to get a beer at once in a while to see if his truck was there. On the way there, I got the call from Dad that his truck was at home and that it didn't look good. We assumed that he had fallen asleep and somehow burned the house down, burned up in the house. I just can't imagine what this family went through. So what's worse, it wasn't long before firefighters found reason to believe that the fire may have been intentionally set. Dispatch recordings capture the following telephone call from TAMMS Fire Chief Jesse Kerr. He says, "This Chief Kerr. This is Chief Kerr from the TAMMS Fire Department. We're still on site. I'm getting ready to notify the fire marshal's office for arson. Just letting you know so you can." And there's something inaudible said. He says, "We have a possible body recovery." So in the hours and days that followed, an Illinois State Fire Marshal's investigator meticulously sifted through the rubble, searching for Mr. McNelly's remains, but that search came up empty, unfortunately. Miss Debbie says his belief was that there was nobody in that house. That was when we really started to have a lot of questions. Harold McNelly says a body survives a fire more than the person thinks that it should. There should have been a body there. There were some deer skulls in there that did not burn up, so that should tell you something. So when the smoke cleared, there was not much left of Larry McNelly's home or his truck. And once again, you can see there, the house is just completely gone. He said the stove was left and the chimney, and that was about it. But Mr. McNelly, Larry, still had not been found. No sign of him. Special Agent Neil Laster with the Illinois State Police Division of Criminal Investigation said the house fire was a little on the suspicious side because the homeowner and sole occupant had not been located at the time. That's why we got called. So Special Agent Laster was called in on September 11th, so the day after that night that the fire occurred. So that's when he was called in to investigate. He says you start every investigation with what you have in front of you. So at this point, we don't know where the owner is. We haven't heard from the owner, so it is a missing person basically at this point. But we do consider that all options are on the table. So state police and law enforcement from surrounding states begin a search for Mr. McNelly, but days passed without any clues to where he could have gone. So Harold McNelly says, my concern was that he would be wounded out here and bleeding to death or dying. State police brought in an aircraft with infrared and went over the entire area. And then the next day, they brought dogs in. So as an active crime scene, Mr. McNelly's home and the area immediately surrounding it remained off limits, but friends and family scoured the rugged and remote terrain on and around Mr. McNelly's property, desperately trying to find him. Laura Lee DeClerc says, we rode four-wheelers and side-by-sides and Jeeps. We pulling down that lane. You could only go so far, but you could see everything. The house and everything was gone. It was really real. That's when it hit me, and it hit all of us. It was quiet, and you knew something was bad. He was not in there, and it was bad, and it was scary. So Mr. McNelly's friend Glenn Wright said, every thought was going through our mind. We're out all over the country looking for buzzards, anything to try to find him. We were actually out in the woods when Debbie got the call to come back to the house, that they needed to talk to her, and they were pretty sure that they had found him. So on September 17th of 2019, Larry's family and close friends learned the gruesome truth of why all their searching had turned up nothing, no signs of Larry. A body discovered by boat workers between two barges in the Mississippi River near Tiptonville, Tennessee, 4 days prior, had been positively identified as Larry McNelly. So a medical examiner in Memphis did rule his death as a homicide. Special Agent Laster said, we find the body, we learn where the body was at, and that changes the direction of the investigation, because now you have a body to work as a scene. Because the Illinois State Police investigation is still open and ongoing, they couldn't reveal any of the details regarding Mr. McNelly's cause of death. But broadly, they said it was immediately clear to investigators that Mr. McNelly's life came to a very brutal and bloody end. So it's just horrible to I can't even think about it. I can just imagine what the family members were going through, having to know something like that their loved one had come to such a horrible end. Wright said it just does not make any sense. Why was he not in that fire deceased versus finding him in the shape that he's in the river? So that was and still is the question. That question and so many others have haunted Mr. McNelly's family for the past now 6 years exactly as of today. Miss Debbie, his sister, says, I've come at times where his house was and imagined, take this down. She says, I've come at times where his house was and imagined what must have happened here. It's horrifying. I was terrified for probably 2 years. I didn't sleep without every single door in the house locked, and I have a concealed carry permit, and I kept my firearm right there by my bed. I could not sleep unless it was right there. I felt unsafe because if they could do this to him, they could do it to anybody. So you can just imagine they don't know who did it, why they did it. Was it something personal against Mr. McNelly? Was it something against the family? Like Miss Debbie said, could they be coming for other members of the family? They just did not know, and they were just living in just complete terror. She goes on to say the way everything happened to him, that is, DeClerc, who is a bartender at Willa's Getaway, says the way everything happened to him, that was terrifying. And so McNelly's favorite local watering hole was Willa's Getaway. And it says a poster seeking information on Mr. McNelly's unsolved homicide has been pinned to the wall of the bar for the last 6 years, basically. DeClerc, the bartender, says everybody talks about it because we don't understand how somebody could hurt someone, especially him. and why. Those who knew Larry said that he was a kind-hearted man. They said he was a bit rough around the edges, but he was known to be a very hard worker. He was quick with a joke, and he was the first to offer help to anyone who needed it. McNelly, or Mr. McNelly's best friend, Joe Winings, said, I lost my dog one time and told Larry about it. While I was sleeping, Larry was out half the night looking for my dog. He brought him by at around 6 in the morning. He said, hey, here's your dog. He was just that kind of friend. I mean, anybody who would go out, stay out all night looking for, somebody else's dog is just, that speaks to me in a way. I love animals. That just speaks to me of how just what a good-hearted person that Mr. McNelly was. So Mr. McNelly, he was a father of 2. He had 6 grandchildren. He loved animals so much that he donated monthly to the ASPCA. And you can see that picture there in the middle. The middle picture of the slide is him with some of his dogs. And he donated money. Let's see if I can make it big enough to read. He loved animals so much he donated monthly to the ASPCA. It says he could be very stubborn and outspoken, according to his sister, Miss Debbie. It said, but underneath it, he still had a soft heart. So he was just a good, all-around good guy. So Alexander County Highway Department coworker David Stevens says his dog was just as friendly as he was. He was a pit bull named Bandit, went just about everywhere with Mr. McNelly. But other than the occasional beer at Willa's, folks say that he pretty much kept to himself. He lived in an extremely remote part of Alexander County in a house that he built with his own 2 hands. Stevens says Larry was a different guy. He came to work pretty religiously. He had to be pretty sick for him to call in. So a plaque in Mr. McNelly's honor still sits in the Alexander County Highway Department front office for everyone to see. Mr. Stevens says it's a reminder. Here we are still with no answers. All we have is that plaque of him. So co-workers say that September 10th, 2019 was a day much like any other day. It was a Tuesday. The only thing unusual about the day was that Larry's mother, who co-workers say he called without fail on his way to work every morning. She was in the hospital in St. Louis following a surgery. And throughout the day, he texted his sister, Debbie, several times to check on their mother's recovery. So even his final text to Debbie at 2:56 p.m. really was not out of the ordinary in any way. They joked about their mother's impatience to get out of the hospital and to get home, whether they had to fight rush hour traffic or anything else. Miss Debbie said that jokes within their family were common because they all just loved to laugh. Miss Debbie says, our family loved to joke around, but he was a master at it. He could outdo all of us. So it sounds like just a really fun guy to be around. So the companionable text exchange would turn out to be the last words that Larry ever spoke to his sister, Miss Debbie. So on his final day of work, Larry wrapped up his 10-hour shift bush hogging in the Rock Springs area of Alexander County. Mr. Stevens says the day that his life was taken, he parked it out, the bush hog out by Sutton Lane. That's where the tractor sat. They made us leave it there for a long time while they went through it. After work, Larry spent a few minutes with one of the guys back at the highway department talking through some repairs that he planned to make to his truck that evening. Then as he drove home, Mr. McNelly called his best friend Joe. Joe says he would often call me on his way home from work. I knew exactly where he was at when he called. When the call dropped, he lived way out in the woods and sometimes out in the middle of nowhere. Cell service can be very sketchy, and you get a lot of drop calls. So Joe said that he doesn't remember much of the 5-minute phone call, mainly because he said it was just a typical conversation between them, between friends. Nothing, he said nothing about it gave him any cause for any concern. He says if he had given me any indication whatsoever that he was afraid to go home or that people were looking for him, I would have remembered. I'd have still been talking to him, telling him not to go home. I don't think he had any idea that he was being hunted. So with no landline, no cell service at home, family members believe that Joe's call was likely Larry's last call that he ever made. So from the moment that the call dropped at 4:52 p.m. to 8:45 p.m. when Bruce Ford called 911 to report the massive fire at Larry's home, there's a 3-hour and 53-minute window of time that is still shrouded in mystery. So apparently, in this 3-hour 53-minute window is when they're thinking whatever happened. Special Agent Laster says, I think there is absolutely somebody out there who knows more that could come forward and help us tremendously. Absolutely. In all these cases, we have a mantra: if you see something, say something. If you know something, say something. Mr. Wright says, as long as it's been right now, they think they've gotten away with it. It's just sickening to know that this man or men, he was not sickening to know that this man, he was not an angel. He did have his demons. He did have his faults, but no one deserves to die the way that he did. Absolutely true. Does not matter what you've done, what somebody may have done in their past. Doesn't matter. Nobody deserves to have their life taken from them. So Illinois State Police say they have no reason to believe that there is danger to anyone else. But the nature of the crime and the fact that it remains unsolved has left many in Alexander County living in fear. Mr. Webb says, honestly, when this happened, I started keeping a loaded firearm under my pillow. So this affected not only Mr. McNelly's family, because you remember I said earlier that Miss Debbie said that, she had a CCP, and she basically slept with a firearm under her pillow, or beside her bed. But just it affected not only the family, but the whole community. Understandably. So Mr. Stevens says, you don't know. You could be shaking the guy's hand who did it. You don't know until it comes out. So yeah, that's another thing. I mean, was it somebody from the community? Was it a stranger passing through? Was it somebody from a nearby community that maybe had something happen with Mr. McNally? I mean, they just don't know. Even investigators say that Mr. McNally's case has really stuck with them. Special Agent Laster says, this one in particular sticks with me because it's gone for the length of time that it's gone on, and I was part of it from the beginning. For sure, there are sleepless nights. Things wake you up at night trying to figure out if there is something that you are missing. So according to investigators, the biggest piece of this puzzle that is missing is cooperation from the public. Once again, it goes back to, if you saw something, say something. If you know something, say something. Investigators believe that fear of getting involved has kept people from coming forward with what they possibly could know. Mr. McNally's family and friends say, given the disturbing nature of the crime, getting those involved off the streets is the safest thing to do. Absolutely. Because if this happened, I live in a very small community, and if something like this happened in my community or any small community, surrounding community, the whole community would be living in fear basically until the person or persons were caught and taken off the street. So I just cannot imagine just the fear. So Mr. Wright says, you're going to be a lot safer with them locked up than you are with them walking the streets thinking, if I just keep my mouth shut, everything will be okay. Um, Harold McNelly says, I'm not in a position to solve it, but the people of Alexander County can solve it. The public can solve it. They live next door to these people. If they knew what I know, what they did to this boy, they would be concerned. They really would. So one thing that has flummoxed the family and friends is how someone managed to get past Mr. McNelly's pit bull Bandit. So while people say that Bandit is friendly, he was known to be fiercely protective of Mr. McNelly. So that is true. Most dogs are absolutely protective of their owners. So I found that very confusing, and was how did they get past the dog? Was it somebody that had been to the house before that knew Mr. McNelly, that knew the dog knew, so that if this person showed up, the dog wouldn't be afraid or wouldn't, go after this person? You don't know. It's just very, very strange, very strange. So Mr. Wright says, there were many times I would go out there to visit Larry, and when I would knock on the door, Larry would say, who is it? And Bandit was steadily clawing at the door like, I got him, Dad, I got him, I'm going to take care of you. And when Larry said, oh, you know him, then, Bandit mellowed out and, was as mellow as can be, very nice. So Bandit was found roaming loose on Mr. McNelly's property the night of the fire. So earlier we talked about how the first firefighter, Webb, got there and said that, he was afraid that Larry and the dog were in the house. He didn't see any sign of the dog, but then eventually the dog, he felt a lick on his hand, and when he saw that it was Bandit, and that's when he knew that something was wrong. So Harold McNelly says he showed up when the crowd started gathering. He came right up here. He survived it all. Too bad we can't just go into his mind and see what he saw. I can't imagine him not doing something if Larry was being physically harmed. That's what makes me think someone was here and knew him and knew the dog and maybe let the dog out. So that would make sense. Like I was saying, could it have been somebody that Larry knew, that Bandit knew? If he opened the door and said, okay, go outside, Bandit, and then Bandit went outside. I'm just theorizing here, just, spitballing here. Maybe let Bandit outside and then did whatever he did to Mr. McNelly and took him away in the vehicle, and Bandit was maybe out in the woods, and then just came when he saw the commotion going on at the house, and then saw people showing up, saw Mr. Webb come in, the firefighter, and then that's when he came out of the woods. And I just breaks my heart thinking about the whole thing. So Bandit is now living with Wright and serves as a daily reminder of what an act of senseless violence stole from those who knew and loved Mr. McNelly. Wright says, I wake up every day and see this pup. When a person does something like this to another person, they don't even think about, I'm taking his mama's life, I'm taking his daddy's life, I'm taking his kid's life. So that's what we always have to remember when we cover these cases, that aside from the victim, behind the story, behind the victim, there's a family. There's a mother, there's a father, there's a brother, a sister, a wife, a kid, grandkids that just are suffering, wanting to know what happened to their loved one. And that's why I do this. That's why all of us do this, is to try to help bring more awareness to these cases, do our little part to try to maybe, bring some closure, help get some information. If somebody happens to see one of our videos, someone will take the initiative, not be afraid to call. And if they did see something, if they know what happened. So that is why we do this. So sadly, Mr. McNelly's death was not the end of the family's heartbreak. Harold McNelly says one of the hardest things when this happened, it's it's one thing to lose your son, but then I had to go home and tell my wife. So he basically had to go home and tell Larry's mother that her son was gone. He says this was very difficult. She lasted about a year, so they actually killed 2 people in this. So that just breaks my heart so much that his mother, you could, maybe even go far as to say she passed away with a broken heart. A year after her son was killed, she passed away. So Harold McNelly said when their son's daily phone calls stopped coming, that his wife just kind of gave up hope. She just gave up. Harold McNelly said she lasted a year. I'm sure she thought about him every day around the time that he was going to work. Miss Debbie, Larry's sister, says she had just found out that her cancer was terminal, and she was lying in bed and said, I wish Larry was here. We put the portrait across from her bed when she was on hospice at home. She looked at it a lot. I know she missed him. So Donna McNelly, his mother, is laid to rest at her son's side at Rose Hill Cemetery in Thebes. And now his surviving family and friends are hoping to see justice served. So Harold McNelly, Larry's father, says at 85, I cannot wait too much longer. As time goes by, things begin to heal, but you never get over a situation like that. My daughter will never get over a situation like that. I want some kind of resolution. I want justice. Hopefully we can get that. So investigators encourage anyone who may know anything, no bit of information is too small, about Larry McNelly's homicide to contact the Illinois State Police. Special Agent Laster says, even if it's fragments of memories, we still need to know those because it might help us. Their fragment of memory might piece with somebody else's fragment of memory, and that would help us put 2 and 2 together. That could just be what brings closure to Mr. McNelly's family and helps us to understand what exactly happened. So on the day that he was killed, Larry was just 20 days shy of turning 60 years old. After helping to man the pumps around the clock for months, fighting the Mississippi River flood of 2019, he was looking forward to retiring from the Alexander County Highway Department, and he was making plans to just enjoy life, to enjoy the rest of his life. His sister, Miss Debbie, says he wanted to travel, he wanted to camp. One of his good friends is doing that now. He should be traveling around with Joe and Bandit, and that's never going to happen now. So Joe had to carry on that journey without his best friend and travel buddy at his side. He says, my retirement would be better if I knew those people were in prison. I could happily grow old and fade away if those people were in jail. That's a reason to hold on. I want to see them in court. I want to watch Harold and Debbie's face when the jury says guilty. So if you know anything about Larry McNelly's unsolved homicide, the Illinois State Police wants you to call. You can call 618-542-2171, extension 1207, or you can email tips to isp.crimetips@illinois.gov, and there is a reward for information leading to an arrest in the case. So guys, this one was such a hard one, and they're all hard. But like I said, when a family member reaches out to me with a story like this one, losing her brother, and just reading what Larry's mother went through, his father went through, the whole family went through, his co-workers went through, his best friend that he was going to travel the world, travel and camp with, now doesn't have his buddy, his best friend to do that with. It just breaks my heart. That is why I do this. So you can help. you can do your part. You can help bring more attention, more awareness to Larry's case by giving the video a like, leaving a comment below. But the most important thing that you can do is share this video anywhere and everywhere you can to all your social media platforms, so that Larry's face, his name, his story stays out there, so that he is never forgotten. His family, he deserves justice. His family deserves justice and closure to know what happened to Larry. So please do whatever you can to help spread as much awareness as you can about this case. If you would like to learn more about cases such as this, missing persons cases, unsolved cold case, homicide cases, please consider subscribing. If you would like to help support the channel so we can keep bringing you stories like Mr. McNelly's, you can check out the donation links in the About section, or somewhere down below there's a button that says thanks. You can just punch it, do a one-time donation. Donations are never expected, but they are always greatly appreciated. As always, thanks for watching. Have a blessed day, and I will see you next time.